You live in Chicago and you're a sports fan, there's certain names that just go hand in hand with sports. Jordan, Mike Ditka, Ernie Banks, Walter Payton, and George Ofman. Because George Ofman, for a long time, has been covering Chicago sports on radio. And my good buddy George Ofman is about to go into a new venture. It is a pleasure to say hello to good old George Ofman. And George, I think I said that exactly the way you wrote it down for me. But hey, you are about to start a new venture. Tell me about the new venture you are about to start.
Well, first of all, thanks, Kenny. And you've been doing this for a long time as well. I think we've seen each other in press boxes now for somewhere around 40 years. So,
but I started when I was 5.
Yeah, right. You and me both, right? I usually tell
Yes.
people I started in another century, but it wasn't the 19th, it was the 20th. So I want to make sure we clarify that part. Um, I'm going to release a podcast on Tuesday called Tell Me a Story. I Don't Know. It's something I've been working on now for 6 months. And it's storytelling by top sports personalities with ties to Chicago. So we're talking, of course, about so many people here in town, including yourself. Kenny did an interview with me about, I want to say 6 weeks ago, which will air sometime in March. And what we did was we tackled people from around the country who've had some kind of prominence with Chicago broadcasting. For example, one of our dear friends and somebody you've known forever, Michael Wilbon, will be our lead guy on Tuesday. Michael, of course, his fame is at the Washington Post and at, of course, pardon the interruption, on ESPN, and he's a South Sider. But as you notice, some of these people on here, we talked to Bob Costas, and what's interesting to note about Bob is the first Super Bowl he ever did was Super Bowl 20, which is which is January 26th, which is the debut of Tell Me a Story I Don't Know. And of course, who tweets a lot about the Bears? Michael Wilbon. So right. we have him, we have Mike Greenberg, Sarah Kustok, Marv Albert, and in town, people like yourself, Mark Giangreco, Chuck Swirsky. I know I'm missing a great Eddie Olczyk. And they tell fabulous stories. I mean, with yourself, some of the stories people have heard, some they have not heard. And what I noticed, Kenny, is, and you know this because it's happening to me right now, is you start asking people to tell a story, it's like turning on a faucet and the water flows. And it's just, it's great. And what we did is we produced it. There's music to it. There's old sound bites that people will get a really good kick out of. And I'm just really hoping that people enjoy it. It's going to be featured on Apple Podcasts, but of course you'll be able to hear it on Spotify and TuneIn and pretty much anywhere where you get your podcasts. And what I would really want people to do is, there's the most important word is subscribe. You can download, but please subscribe to Tell Me a Story I Don't Know.
So now, George, everybody you've interviewed, they're all broadcasters, no athletes? Or are you going to stick with the broadcasters?
No, we are trying to branch out. It's not as easy to find athletes today who fit this bill, because storytelling is going to be about people who have had a lot of experiences. We've reached out to a couple thus far, but most of the people are in fact in the media, whether it's writers or broadcasters or ex-athletes. And Steve Stone is part of this. He's an ex-athlete. We have a whole group of people that I'll be interviewing for our second season. We run 3 seasons that are 13 weeks long. So, for example, we will be having people like Len Casper, Dan Hampton, Dave Wanstedt. Dave Wanstedt, by the way, might be the best storyteller of all time. He is absolutely spectacular. Charlie Steiner, Kevin Harlan, they're all going to be part of the second season. But yes, of course, we would love to get those athletes who have maybe been around for a while and can tell a whole lot of stories. But most of these people have, they've got a long history and they've got a lot of things to say.
So what made you decide this is the route you wanted to take? Because it's a great idea.
Well, when I was let go by BBM in July, I came to a realization in this industry, and particularly with the pandemic still raging, that getting back into radio is going to be a really tough task. I was the dinosaur of dinosaurs in the anchoring and reporting business. And, I was hoping that I would be working at BBM until into my 70s. I'm 67 now. But and so I don't think it was more than 2 weeks after I was let go in July that I came up with the idea. The idea is one thing, Kenny. Never being part of podcasts is another. And I started taking Podcast 101, and I really leaped quickly to learn a great deal about this industry. And I've had a lot of help from people in this city and outside of it learning it. I'm right now partnering with a fellow named TJ Reeves, who is the pre and post game host of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I've got a wonderful young editor named Will Hatzel in Indiana, and a great illustrator. And you saw that photo, that promo photo, is from a young lady named Titi Shinkin. She came up with it. I gave her the idea, and she hit it right on the head. She was absolutely spectacular. So
yeah, I love the cartoon of you. That's beautiful.
Oh, that's that one was. We had one with a headset, and then she did that one, and I took a vote, and everybody said use the one where your head is there. I said okay, fine, we'll do that. It's fine, it'll work. But I learned a lot. I made so many phone calls and so many inquiries to so many people to understand what this industry is all about. It's still a blossoming industry. It's a tough industry to monetize. Fortunately, we do have a couple of sponsors, and I'm thrilled that Vienna Beef and the Paulina Market are going to be sponsoring us. That's not easy. So we'll see how things go. But the one thing about it is really entertaining. And when I talk to you, gosh, the one thing about the people that I've had is they can't stop talking. It's great. It's great to hear your stories. And, you probably told the story 1,000 times. It's still great about how you died and came back. That's an incredible story. Yeah. But there were other stories. And we touched on Ben Wilson. And I thought to myself the other day, how many people who are 40 years old today know who Ben Wilson is? And that's an education for them to understand who this young man was. And it's a good story that you tell. So when that time comes, and obviously we'll promote it, people should be listening so that they understand there are stories to tell from these people that are just absolutely fabulous. And many of them involve their connections to Chicago.
Yeah. Well, one thing about it, George, I think this podcast is going to be successful because you know everybody. I mean, who don't you know? I mean,
that's a great picture.
There's Ozzy. There you are with the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
You know everybody. My buddy Tom Ricketts.
Yeah, that was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, Tom's a good friend of mine, and Eddie,
Eddie's going to be second up in our interviews, and he was just there are certain people that just really grasp storytelling, and I mean, we all can tell stories, but some people are very adept at it. Eddie is one of those guys. He is just incredibly adept. And, I've been around. I was here when he was a kid rookie in 1984. So, all of the people that I've talked to are wonderful people with great stories. And somebody said, which one is the best? I said, all of them. I know that sounds political, but it's true. Yeah. I can't pick one person that I didn't enjoy more than the other because they all have such great history to tell you about.
Yeah. George, why did you decide to become a sportscaster? I know you went to SIU, studied broadcasting. What was it about sportscasting that made you say, this is what I want to do?
I wanted to do it when I was 8. I grew up in Albany Park, and so I went to Hibbert Elementary School, and in the spring and summer, there was a campus. It was a huge campus of just gravel with 2 baseball fields. And all the kids in the neighborhood get together and we play rubber baseball. And I was not just playing, I was Jack Brickhouse. I was the announcer. So we did the pregame show and the 10th inning show when I would use a soda can and I would interview the players. I would interview my friends. So I knew back then exactly what I wanted to do. It's, you know, it hits you right away. Plus, you're growing up with these people like Lloyd Pettit and Jack Brickhouse, who people don't realize did everything. You know,
Yeah.
people know he's the voice of the Cubs. He was also the voice of the White Sox. He was the voice of the Bears. He was the voice of the Bulls. He was the voice of the Sting, for crying out loud. He was the voice of everybody. Well, it didn't take much, you know, to hear him. And then as I was a teenager growing up and watching and reading Brent Musburger, and that was it. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. How I was going to take that path, I did not know. But when I went to SIU, it didn't take long. I became the sports director within a couple of quarters. And from there, you know, the career took its own path. But I knew right away what I wanted to do.
Well, I tell you what, George, nobody does it better than you have. I mean, you've anchored, you've reported, you've done it all. But before I let you go, I got to show you one final picture.
Sure.
Now,
yeah.
How old were you, or how long ago was this photo taken? Because I love the beard and I love the hair.
That is the promotional picture for the Score in 1992. It was the last year that I had a beard because it became too salt and peppery, and I couldn't really grow a beard very well. But that one looked pretty good. So that's 29 years ago. And I put that out there on social media for the 29th anniversary of the Score because I was an original member. And I kept looking at, what do I want to put out? I said, well, you know, put out the time when you actually had hair. You know what I mean, Kenny? It's a good idea.
I loved it. Hey, I'm trying to hold on to mine as long as I possibly can. Hey, George, tell me one more time about this great series that you're going to have, your podcast, and where we can find it.
Tell Me a Story I Don't Know is coming out Tuesday morning. You can find it on Apple Podcasts. It'll also be on Spotify. It'll be on Stitcher. I will have a lot of promotions for it. Actually, it's on Apple Podcasts now with a tease. And I will be putting that out there sometime a little later today. And I think that when people subscribe to it and download it, they're really going to get a kick out of it. It's going to be once every week. So there'll be a new guest every week. And I think that you may be familiar with some stories, but you won't be familiar with a lot of the other stories. And we're going to go back in time with some of these people. And I think everybody will get a great kick out of it.
Well, George, I am looking forward to this. This is a wonderful idea because you have all these great announcers, you know, like Bob Costas, who gets to sit down and talk to Bob Costas. And this is going to be a wonderful, wonderful series. I hope everybody listens and subscribes to it. Thank you for letting me be part of it. And thank you so much for taking time out today to take time with me today. I really, really appreciate it.
Kenny, it's my pleasure, and thanks for helping to promote it. And I'll let everybody know when it's Kenny McReynolds' turn for Tell Me a Story I Don't Know. Thanks.
And believe me, I'll let everybody know too.
Thanks.
Thanks, George.